I'd like to remind folks to please turn off your cell phones. If you're inclined to turn them on quiet and go to our YouTube page where you can like our service. Maybe it'll increase our standing in the algorithm that helps people find us. Welcome and good morning. Hope you're all having a beautiful day. I love this lower temperature. It's a kind of temperature that allows us to survive. And so I paused many times this week thinking about the people around the world who don't have air conditioning, who are being bombed. We have lots to be grateful for here. So I hope we will remember that as we go through our week and face our own personal challenges, which are real. For those of you that are watching online, welcome. This is the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint, and we welcome you, extend to you a especially warm welcome and an invitation to return again soon. We are a welcoming congregation. We hold out our hands to old, young, poor, rich, able-bodied, and the challenged, and all in between. We will all be some of those things, or have been some of those descriptive phases as we traverse this earth and pass through our life. We extend our arms to people of every color, and we embrace all based not on whom they love, but only that they love. So may all who enter here as strangers feel welcomed as friends. We hope you'll join us again. We do have a visitor's card, this colorful thing in the back of the pew. If you're new, please fill it out. We promise not to harass you. You'll get a weekly email update and an occasional emergency phone call, a message that will tell you of changes that are urgent. I want to remind you that we have something called a coffee hour after church today, and wish you would join us. If you feel inclined to help clean up after coffee hour, that assistance is always welcome. Now, it's unusual and an old practice that we have forgotten is to take a moment to stand, turn, and greet your neighbor, please. Say good morning to each other. So glad to meet you. And I'm so excited for your new job. I welcome you to return to your seats. And I will remind you that you will have more time during coffee hour to greet and meet. I want to point out to you that on the back of the service is a number of things, but we have lots of announcements to make this week. And so I'd like to start and remind you that next week is the second Sunday, and we're starting back on our second Sunday donation cycle. Wellness Services will be the recipient of this month's donations, and we encourage you to go online and learn more about their services. This is our last month. It was Michigan UU Social Justice Network. We hope you'll consider a donation to these organizations as we go through each month. Secondly, we are having an event Monday night, that's tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Hands Off My Vote or Michigan Vote in-person training. It will help you be prepared to talk about the ballot initiatives that are coming up, and they are stealthily worded to take away some of our wonderful voting access in this state. Please consider coming. Again, at 6 o'clock here in the Unitarian Church. Next week, our new minister, the Reverend Joseph Cherry, whose meeting is here today. Make sure you say hi to him afterwards. And he's going to share with us what sounds like a humorous attack called the Define Chocolate Chip Cookie. So I think you should come and figure out what's going on with that interesting title. Number 4, the Flint Regional Herbal Collective will be meeting on the 16th, and everyone's invited to stay with the group and learn about it. Turns out they did a tour of our property last month, and we have some invasives. We certainly know about the buckthorn, and we're working on it. And on August 23rd, we will finish our discussion of the second half of Braiding Sweetgrass. Please join us. You can find that book online through your Kindles, through Libby at your local library, so you can do it free. You don't have to buy it. Number 6, there was a postponement of the Pride event because of the hazardous air, and those who might be willing to volunteer, see Terry Cross. We're going to need a man or woman of that booth for a long but exciting event that day. And then a quick announcement. If you look at the order of service, as we go through this, there's been a change in the order in which we're going to do songs, so that what is now listed as the postlude will be done right after Andy's sermon, and you'll get it, and you'll be invited to sing along, and our postlude will be Draw the Circle Wide. And now, Andy, if you could come up and light our candle. As we light our chalice, our flame of warmth and light connects us here in this room and with our brothers and sisters everywhere around the planet. And now, if you'll join me in reciting our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. That was beautiful wonders being done. You all stand if you're willing and able. We're going to page 29. No, we're not. I forgot. Here, take it out. I don't know about you, but I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how I will celebrate our 250th anniversary of this country. I sang in a patriotic program with the Flintmaster Singers. The first half is filled with all the military branch songs and standard things, and I sing it and I smile, but I'm concerned because so much of what I see as the need for this country doesn't seem to be happening for everyone. But I stumbled across an article that I'm going to share with you today. It's entitled To Heal America, We Got to Rethink Patriotism by Dominique Erdozian, a recently a citizen who's from Britain originally. America celebrated its 250th birthday mired in conflict. James Madison designed a system in which power would be balanced by power, but in the current Trump administration, many of these checks have collapsed. One response to the resulting chaos has been a call to fight nationalism with patriotism and recover the soul of America from what is held to be a temporary aberration. The patriotism to cure nationalism idea goes back to a classic essay by George Orwell, which defined nationalism as aggression and characterized patriotism as its kinder older brother. But if patriotism contains the belief that America is exceptional and uniquely positioned to lead the world in the ways of freedom, that's already nationalist. Too often, patriotism inhibits bold solutions to America's problems by convincing Americans that they already live in the greatest land in the world. When moderates told Martin Luther King Jr. to slow down in the 1960s, caution was framed as patriotism. The notion that Americans are fundamentally good, the best and healthiest of nations, King once wrote, is the illusion of the damned. So, as a newly minted U.S. citizen, I began to look for other forms of patriotism. In the early days of the Republic, many reformers shared my suspicions. Abolitionists like Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison exposed the intimate relationship between the narrative of American exceptionalism and the original sin of slavery. They argue that patriotism was more than a glaze in the flawed structure. It was the mortar that bound the building blocks of democracy to a pretty rotten timber of a slave empire. In the Declaration of Independence, it said that all humans were created equal. But read the Constitution. With its 3/5 and fugitive slave clauses, it obviously declared the opposite. For Garrison, patriotism was a force holding the nation back from its creed, and Douglass agreed. For him, the view of America as the last hope of a fallen world has more than an unfortunate narcissism. It was a rivet in the chains of 4 million enslaved people. Garrison lamented that patriotism once again took precedence over rational justice after the Civil War, which saved the Union. And then it turned around and abandoned African Americans. Jim Crow was engineered under a beaming discourse of national unity. We need to know more of our history. Reformers of the progressive era shared their anxieties, yet their instinct was to rise rather than reject the patriotic impulse. Jane Addams felt America could take pride in the founders' anti-militarism and believe Americans should embrace the kaleidoscope of cultures within our shores. Rather than melting immigrants into a drab conformity, we should learn from them. When the newer patriotism becomes large enough, she wrote, it will overcome arbitrary boundaries and soak up the notion of nationalism. And journalists Crystal Eastman and Randolph Bourne argued similarly amidst the nationalism of World War I. Militarism and nativism were two sides of the same coin, observed Eastman. We certainly see that now. The answer was a more inspiring vision of America as a nation of nations. Step onto the campus of a vivid American university, urged Bourne, and you will feel this new America, a place where friendships span the globe, and internationalism is implicit. Here, or in any of the nation's great cities, are the ingredients for a better kind of patriotism. This is an enticing response. We can and will do better together. Patriotism seems to be a movable feast, and Adams is no less an anchor of my American identity than Madison. Reclaiming patriotism requires rediscovering the people who refused to give up on democracy, even when they were called un-American for doing so. For your reflection, my sharing of this reading. And now, if you will stand, and Bonnie will join us in singing hymn 29, Joyful, Joyful.
Please stand as you're willing and able. You'll know the tune. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, hail thee, precious Son above. Melt the clouds of driven sadness, drive the pain of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the joy of day. All thy works with joy surround thee, earth and heaven reflect the rays. Stars and planets sing around thee, center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, blossoming meadow, flashing sea, panting birds and flowing fountains, all us rejoice in thee. Thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed, wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth and happy rest. Onward singing, march we forward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music lifts us onward in the triumph song of love. Thank you. You may be seated.
As we dim the lights for our meditation, we ask you to go to a place of quiet reflection, prayer, however you wish to name this time and space. I ask you to consider placing feet on the ground, eyes open or closed, and breathe in ever so softly and out ever so gently. This is a time to find your own center. After this period of silence, music will begin, and you will be invited to light candles at the front in celebration and remembrance of joys and sorrows. Most of us know Andy. He's been in our pulpit and challenged our brains and our thinking before. So welcome here. You can read about his bio on order of service. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and with us today.
Thank you for your playing of Spiegel im Spiegel, which means in German, the mirror within the mirror, where we are invited to think about ourselves, and also the singing of Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, which is clearly a rational view of the universe set right. I present you today with all models are wrong, some are useful, or no one will thank you for telling them the truth, and why you might care. At the end of this talk, as Raina mentioned before, we will go right into music from the speech, or from my speaking, I should say, at the end of it. You are invited to sing along if you can get the gist of the piece. This talk comes from a book that I read. It's written in 2007. It is called Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. And it presents, I don't know when I read it, but it presents a model of an irrational person. Because of cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias, and other cognitive biases, you cannot use a rational model for people. Let's talk about models for a second. One of my favorite models, and where I started to learn about modeling in engineering, was with the inverted pendulum. I present you with the humble cricket bat. I did not have a baseball bat at home, but I had this from a trip I took a long time ago. The inverted pendulum asks you to balance the pendulum under your hand. Now, when we do this as people, we intuitively start to sense the natural frequency of the bat. We can look at the top of it and keep our hand under the bottom. But when computers try to do this, we have to use math and models. As the pendulum swings, it traces an arc. I dare someone to try to balance the cricket bat at 45-degree angle from where the hand is. It's nearly impossible. But right at the top, that part of the arc can be modeled as a line, as a linear thing, and linear things are easier to do the math on. I know I have some math people in the house. So all of a sudden you can use less computing power if you just believe that that arc is a line. And when I learned that in 2005, learning from a professor, Kevin Craig, at Rensselaer Polytechnic, he said all models are wrong. That's not a line, it's a little arc, but some are useful. Now, when I learned about that, I have used that story for the last 15 years, and at Kettering University, when I gave a talk and spouted off that throwaway phrase, all models are wrong, but some are useful, someone brought up a person named George Box. George Box was a statistician, and he did lots of things with statistics, and he actually came up with that phrase. He was trying to figure out if you are trying to get to C, he was working on economics. If you are trying to get to C and you are at A and B moves you in the direction of C, how likely is it that the person will do B? Okay, all models are wrong, some are useful, he came up with in that endeavor. Now, why are models important? What sort of models do we engage with every day? One of my favorites is that language is a way of giving information quickly to others. That's a model that we have in our head. You should be concise. I'm just telling my engineering students that, who have learned from high school English that they should be verbose and use big words. And I'm saying to be clear, which is a different model. But it turns out if I was just trying to get information across to you, this whole sermon would take 3 minutes. I've timed it. That model isn't quite right for all situations. Another of my favorite models as a teacher is the brain on a stick model, where your students are simply brains on a stick waiting for you to give them information. You don't have to worry about what happened to them or who they're in love with or if they've just, kissed their first person. It's calculus time. You're going to learn calculus, right? Also a model that has tricky implications if you use it. Not correct. My favorite model, though, and it's one that we live with and that I argue with my mother about every once in a while, is that people are rational. Whoever thought that a model of a person being rational was the right model? Now we are going to take a jaunt through 2,000 years of Western European, not psychology, but philosophy, thank you, the other P word. Very quickly, by the way, all models are wrong. Some are useful. So even if I get some of these people wrong, it's useful for my story. So stick with me. My favorite starting point, along with many others, is Socrates. Socrates is looking for the highest use of whatever he encounters. And it turns out we have this flap of cells that grew about 300,000 years ago in human beings that made us able to think about things and solve problems. Well, what must the highest use for that flap of skin be, that higher part of our brain, other than to be logical? He comes up with that model, and we still use it today. I encountered it in my PhD courses just recently. To talk about Socrates for a second, I am all for neurodiversity, but he's probably on the spectrum. Also a narcissist, anyone who believes that when they're being sentenced to death, they should be given a meal by their accusers, probably has something going on that's a little different than what we may have going on in our brains. But why do we still talk about Socrates? Socrates taught Plato. Plato wrote down what Socrates said. We have no idea what Socrates actually said. We just know what Plato said about him. And then Socrates taught Aristotle. And who did Aristotle teach? Alexander the Great, who took over the known world, or however you want. All models are wrong. Some are useful. Let's just use that model for now. And by the way, if you're saying, well, this is all Western philosophy, I like Eastern philosophy, there are just as many models that are wrong there as there are here. But some are useful. So the Romans take everything from the Greeks, or they're given things by the Greeks, but they inherit the Socrates, Plato, Aristotle line, and then they become Christians because of the Malvern Bridge. They win a battle and they become Christians. And in Christianity, there is a natural order of things ordained by God. Joyful, joyful. We adore thee, right? Okay, so then things happen to the Romans, the Western Romans at least. The Western Roman Empire falls apart and it goes into a dark age. It turns out the Eastern Roman Empire doesn't. That's why Romania is over there and not in Italy, and why they were the Romanovs in Russia. They believed they were the last Roman Empire people that were left. But the Eastern Empire speaks Greek and the Western Empire speaks Latin, so there's a disconnect in knowledge. So the West goes into a dark age. Also, by the way, the Muslims come across North Africa, and they didn't burn any of their books because they're new at all of this, right? And they are the best mathematicians and scientists on the planet. Algebra, alcohol, they're the best people at this. And they interact with Dark Ages Europe through Spain, mostly, and southern Italy. Because of the eventual fall of the Eastern Roman Empire, much of the Greek teaching, this is now in the 12th century or 13th century, starts to come back into Europe as well. And that, through the scholastics, builds a renaissance of knowledge about what Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and others were doing with logic, which leads us directly to the Enlightenment. Was that quick enough for you? We've done about 2,000 years. That's pretty good, I think. And I want you to remember Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz. Those are the rationalists. And what they want is they take this old learning and they say, well, listen, there could be this deity-inspired thing, but there must also be a natural, rational order to the world, including with people. Okay? You can also possibly put Newton in there. I have a question mark next to his name. We'll talk about him later at coffee hour, if you want to. So there's an innate truth in the world that is universal and rational. Hegel, by the way, takes this idea, which becomes German idealism, which leads directly to something that is less pleasant, but I won't mention, right? German idealism, joyful, joyful, we adore thee. So is there another way to find truth in the world without a deity? There's a group of Scots, and the Scots, the Presbyterians made schools all over Scotland in the 1500s, and that became the people who came out of those schools became a very literate class. If you look at science, James Watt, Scottish, right? There are one person after another is a Scottish person who has their name on a unit of measure. Out of the Scottish tradition comes someone named Hobbes and the empiricists. What the empiricists believe is that you've got to test everything. We can have these models, but no model will actually tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. Just because A led to B led to C today does not mean that it will happen tomorrow. The sun will come up again, the world will be new, and maybe people will be different. Hobbes teaches Locke. Locke teaches the founding fathers, of course, and then Hume is sort of the end of this line, if you take my simplistic model. And he says, it turns out humans are not rational at all. They're emotion-driven. Totally the opposite of the model of the rationalists. Okay. By the way, what we've just set up is conservatism, classical conservatism, and classic liberalism. Classic conservatism believes there's an order in the world, possibly inspired by a deity, but also informed by logic and rationality. If you take that deity at face value, then you can start to make claims, rational claims, based off of that starting point. The classical liberalism, of course, takes this idea of some sort of truth and system and breaks it down into three important parts that we can come into contract with each other, that there's a social contract that we can make with each other to agree on how the world is, that we have freedoms within that contract, freedom of speech, assembly, sound familiar? And of course, that we can self-determine. We have agency to work within this system. That's classical liberalism. Several revolutions happen based on this. Ours, of course, which is the best revolution, as we know, 250 years later. Where's Reina? There we go, right? It's the best revolution. We create a rational way of creating the world for the people who are running it, at least. Before that, however, there was the Glorious Revolution 100 years earlier. We forget about that one, where the English overthrew their king and beheaded him, right? People had read the book, they had thought about the Bible, they had written the Book of Common Prayer, and if you did not believe what was in that Book of Common Prayer, which was rational, then you were irrational, going to hell anyway, and you could be killed, which is a rational response to that irrational starting point. Does that make sense? Oof. We're not going to talk about the French Revolution. Too much blood spilt on that. But both of these systems are in search of a rational world. So let me come now to Kant, Immanuel Kant, who sort of has to straddle the rationalists. He's not a rationalist, but he believes in rationality, and the empiricists. But even Kant comes to the point where, quote, the moral act has to be logically formulated and freely chosen based on principles. We are still trying to be rational. How are these models working out for us so far? Let's talk about some non-rational models as well, just to spice things up a bit. Mistakes were made, but not by me, presents us as deluded by our cognitive biases into believing that we're rational. I would say that one of the sub-themes in the book is that it's more evolutionarily helpful to believe that you're self-consistent than to actually be rational. That way, when somebody gets killed in the forest looking for food, what's the rational response to that? Never go in the forest again. People die in there. But if we have evolved a little bit to go, oh, that person must have been dumb. They got eaten by the bear. I won't get eaten by the bear. Mistakes were made, but not by me, right? That's another model. I want to bring up another of my, I think I brought this up in the last talk as well. Jonathan Haidt, who's a contemporary philosopher, he developed a model that was an irrational model where people do, it's based on the elephant and the rider. And this comes from Hume, by the way, that we are emotional. The emotion is the elephant, and there's someone riding the elephant. Something happens, the elephant moves in a direction. What does the rider have to then do? If the rider is rational, and now they're over here, they have to say why that was rational. Oh, the elephant moved over there. Okay, great. And by the way, in Haidt's model, we do that to signal our morality to other people. Oh, I did this thing. Here's why it was rational. So it's post facto. There you go. He, by the way, developed that model in response to another model that was made by a person named Kohlberg, who is a philosopher and statistician type person. And he, Kohlberg, developed 6 layers of of development for morality. First of all, you avoid punishment. Second of all, you please yourself. Thirdly, you please others. These are, by the way, in a hierarchy. You move through it linearly. Then you please the community, not just one person. Then you have a duty to keep the community together. And then you have a duty to universal truth. That was his model. Haidt said, that can't be right. By the way, Kohlberg made that model up after studying 70 boys who grew up in Chicago for 10 years. That's where the model comes from. Great. All models are wrong. Some are useful. Haidt's model, by the way, is built on something that I talked about before, which are 5 social intuitions that can build a rational space. Freedom, merit, are things good or bad? 2 of those together are what classical liberals believe in, freedom of thought and merit. And then merit, loyalty, subjection to authority, and ability to believe in a national myth. Sanctity is what he calls it. And those 4 things are often associated with a classical conservative view of the world. By the way, they're good for different moments. We talked about that in my last talk, so I'll leave that for now. One final one that I would like to bring up is something that I've been encountering in my PhD in engineering education, which is intersectionality. That is a theory set that comes about in the 1980s. And again, all models are wrong, but there are 3 points to intersectionality. A, that there's a matrix of oppression that we can bring onto each other. Lots of different ways to oppress our people. Economically, socially, you name it. Number 2, there are multiple things to discriminate against people on: gender, sexuality, class, race. But the third one I think is the most interesting for this point, which is the idea of standpoint theory, which is that no one could have ever been in all the places that I have been during my lifetime. It's just not physically possible. No one could have been me, so my story is different than anyone else. And part of standpoint theory is that in order for you to convince and communicate with me, you must know that story. That identity is important. And by that measure, we would have I'm sorry, I'm quoting the when I was 20 years old population of the planet. 8 billion people have their own stories. Fareed Zakaria on Freakonomics Radio, a podcast that I listened to, responded to this idea that we would need to know all of that to make rational decisions or to even convince people of something. And he said, this is a way that classical liberalism breaks down. We can no longer come into contract with each other because we don't agree, or we don't know that we don't agree. By the way, one other little ism that I haven't talked about, but some scholars believe that socialism and communism is a way to break down classical liberalism that we all have lived in. But socialism, by the way, is a highly rational model. How do we distribute capital rationally? Okay. So these are the things that we argue about daily on news broadcasts with our friends, our family members. But another thing that I've come to know as part of getting the PhD in engineering education is the idea that there are different ethics than the right and wrong ethics, the left and right ethic, the higher purpose ethic. That there's a set of ethics that was developed in the 1980s when women's voices started to be a part of the philosophy conversation in the West. And that's care ethics. Care ethics is developed by a few thinkers. The one that I will be quoting the most often is Nell Noddings. She was a professor at Stanford. And she says that care ethics starts, as with birth, with humans in relation to each other. This is in contrast to Kant's view, where we have where we start with individual moral adult agents, people that are already able to do the things and know the right and wrong. Care ethics starts with humans in relation to each other. It's a dyadic, a word that I've learned now so I can sound fancy. A dyadic is the smallest way for two people to relate to each other. Isn't that interesting? Right and wrong has a top and a bottom, a better and a worse, where a dyadic doesn't. You can spin it around. There is a carer and a cared for. Those roles, by the way, are not fixed. They are situational. They're not set. The carer has responsibilities in care ethics. The carer is attentive to, feels with, and responds to the care needs of the cared for. The number one goal, the ethical thing to do in situations where this can happen, is that you are trying to maintain the relationship. That relational connection is the most important part versus being right or wrong or moral. The cared for also has responsibility in this ethical model. Their responsibility is to respond and recognize the care that's being provided by the carer. Now, this is built on, in relationships that are working, professional, interpersonal, there is an aspect of those relationships that's natural caring, and this comes from an inclination to go through the caring act. This can be contrasted with ethical caring, where I ethically feel responsible to care for you, but I don't like you very much, where that relationship has been broken. There we can, according to care ethics, we can remember a time when we were having the natural caring relationship, try to take that in, and it's a tool that you can use to repair the broken relational activity that may be happening. You can also contrast caring with with virtue caring. Relational caring is different than virtue caring. In a relational caring situation, which is what they suggest, the ethics are that you maintain the relationship. That's the most important thing. So if the cared for doesn't respond to you, your obligation is to try another way. Get some response, maintain that relationship. In virtue caring, the act of caring is the virtue. Look at all of this care that I gave you. Why aren't you responding? And you can then walk away. You see the difference? It's a different model for how to be. So how does this model change the possible action you can take with others? How does this set the world differently than trying to be right or wrong? I imagine that I could go into a faith congregation that I did not think was built on a rational model, and I could go into that space and I could stand up and tell them the truth about how their model is wrong. Now, what would the rational human do when being presented with new true information? They would simply say, "Thank you. I guess we were wrong the whole time. You're right. We'll just stop doing this." All models are wrong, some are useful. When our models stop serving us, maybe we have to change models. I present you with care ethics in that, not as a full treatment of care ethics, but in the spirit that you may go out and search for ideas about care. By the way, I'll also leave as an exercise for you. Imagine how you could go into that different faith tradition and engage with them in a dyadic, not as the purveyor of truth, but in some other way. Let me land the plane. If we take a rational model of the view of our lives and our relationships with others, if we believe in a rational model, we would end much as Hadestown, the musical, ends. By the way, in theaters right now, a fabulous show. In Hadestown, it's essentially the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus and Eurydice fall in love with each other. Eurydice ends up in Hades. Orpheus goes to save her from the land of the dead. As he is allowed to bring her out, there is a test, however, which is she must walk behind him. He can never know if she's still there. She could turn around and go back. We don't know. People have lost their sense of selves in Hades. She could never get there. If he turns around before she crosses over into this world, she will be banished to Hades forever. And of course, he gets out, and she's not there. And she's not there. And finally, he turns around just as she is about to cross over, and she's banished into Hades. She falls through, in the musical, she falls through a hole in the stage. And Hermes, who has been our narrator this time, the god of messaging, walks over to the hole and looks at it, and he turns to a stunned audience. The musical has been tricking you. They've been playing songs that make you think it could be better this time. He says to the audience, "All right, that's how it goes." Any rational person would never tell this story. It's a sad song. It's an old tale. It's a tragedy. But Hermes continues. But we sing it anyway. It is not necessarily a story about rationality. It's a story about how people and gods try to relate to each other. It's a sad song. It's an old tale from way back when. but it's a love song. And we're going to sing it again.
It's an old song. It's an old tale from way back when. It's an old song. This is how it is. That's how it goes. Don't ask why, brother, don't ask how. You could have come so close. This song was written long ago. And that is how it goes. It's a sad song. It's a sad tale. It's a tragedy. It's a sad song. But we sing it anyway. 'Cause here's the thing. To know how it ends and still begin to sing it again, as if it might just turn out this time. I learned that from a friend of mine. See, Orpheus was a poor boy, but he had a gift to give. He could make you see the world, how the world could be, in spite of the way that it is. Can you see it? Can you hear it? Can you feel it coming like a train? Is it coming? Is it coming this way? On a sunny day there was a railroad car, and a lady stepped off of the train, and everybody looked and everybody saw that spring had come again with a love song, with a tale of love from long ago. It's a sad song, but we keep singing even so. It's an old song. It's an old tale from way back when. And we're gonna sing it again and again. We're gonna sing, we're gonna sing. It's a love song. It's a tale of love from long ago. It's a sad song, and we keep singing even so. It's an old song. It's a sad tale from way back when. And we're gonna sing it again and again. We're gonna sing it again.
Now it's time for generosity. Unitarian Universalism is a kind of a grand vision. We have this idea of a world filled with peace and justice and love and joy. Every congregation depends on each of its members to make that vision real here in our congregations, in our communities, and in the broader world. When we expend our time, energy, and resources, we ask you, if able, to make a donation to the support of this congregation by leaving a donation in the basket as you exit, or by going online to our website, or scanning the QR code, which you should find somewhere in the back of your service. And now, I'm going to ask Andy to come up and extinguish this as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth or the fire of commitment. Fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are gathered again. Body's going to lead us in our final hymn.
Yes. If you are willing and able, please stand, and we're going to be singing a new song to this congregation. The choir sang it at choir practice last week, so if you were at choir practice last week, sing loud. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Thank you, that was beautiful. You guys did good.